freedom, man. That's what it's all about. You've got to groove on freedom, like the good book says.
Welcome. You are listening to What on Earth is Happening. This show will discuss the topics of human consciousness, mind control, natural law, the occult, and all issues that affect the freedom of the people of Earth. What on Earth is Happening will endeavor to shine light upon the darkness of our world and to offer empowering solutions to the problems we face as humanity approaches its critical moment of choice. And now, here is your host, Mark Passio.
Welcome, one and all. You're listening to What on Earth is Happening right here on the Intel Hub News Network. I'm your host, Mark Passio. The show is live every Tuesday evening from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. My website is whatonearthishappening.com. The network's website, theintelhubnewsnetwork.com. Today is Tuesday, January 18th, 2011. And we have a good show lined up for you here today. We're going to continue to unravel some occult philosophies and traditions on What on Earth is Happening. This has we've been taking a break from the mind control methodologies that we've been outlining and exploring in depth on the show for many, many weeks. And I feel that it is important to expose the listeners to some schools of occult thought, because this is essential if we are really going to understand both ourselves and the methods which are being wielded against us, because it is all about knowing the self. And if we remain in ignorance of it, we can be controlled through the mind. And it's also important to understand different occult schools and schools of thought and philosophies to understand symbolism and how symbolism really works, which is going to be the next method of mind control and basically covert influence upon consciousness that we're going to be talking about on the show in the next couple of weeks. Tonight we are going to look at the tradition of tarot, the tarot cards, the book of life as it is called. So this should be a great show, and we're going to be discussing a lot of sacred symbolism on the show tonight. We'll be breaking down the major arcana of the tarot deck, and we'll be seeing how the tarot deck relates to the Kabbalistic tradition, the tradition of Kabbalah and the Tree of Life, which we looked at extensively last week. So up on the website, I have some images and a document. If you go to whatonearthishappening.com and you go to the radio listen page, which is the button that is on the left-hand side of the site, click that. It will take you to the listen page, and you will see there for tonight's show, January 18th, 2011, you'll see images and document. And there are 3 image links there for the show tonight to refer to, and there is a PDF document. It's a compressed series of JPEG images made into a PDF, and it's about 6 megabytes, so hopefully the server will be able to handle that depending on how many people are downloading it. Be patient with that. That is an entire tarot deck. It is the Universal Weight Tarot Deck by A.E. Waite, and it's an excellent deck. It is colored beautifully, and all of the images, all 78 images of the tarot deck are included in that PDF document for reference on the show this evening and during your own time. That is, if you don't already have a tarot deck that you can refer to while we go through this. Now, we're going to talk about tarot tonight, and specifically its relation to Kabbalah, and then we will be breaking down the symbolism of the tarot. Actually, we'll be doing this kind of in conjunction at the same time, simultaneously. I'll be breaking down the symbolism and relating it to the tarot tradition, to the Kabbalah tradition, I should say. So we looked at the tree of life symbolism of Kabbalah last week and understood, hopefully, how this is connected with the human psyche and human consciousness. It is all about the self. It is knowledge of self. I posted some really nice videos on Kabbalah, very simple, nothing in depth, on the website in the podcast section, along with some books on Kabbalah. So for people that want to study further, they can go up to my website, they can click onto the podcast tab, and I believe the show last week was show number 42. So that is up on the site, and there is a host of documents up there for your perusal and download. And you could throw them on any kind of a digital reader or read them on your computer and learn more about the Kabbalistic tradition. There's also some movies that are very simple on what Kabbalah is, what it can do for you, basic material, very introductory, okay, for the student who is just beginning, the new initiate, so to speak, okay. I would hope that people will avail themselves of this information and study it further, because it is a powerful and rich tradition if it is understood in the proper light and used in the right ways. So that's what this is all about on the show. Knowledge is simply a means. What we do with it is what really matters. Okay? That's what true wisdom is all about. And this information can be used for great good or great evil. It depends upon the consciousness of the wielder of said information. And I will continue to repeat that theme ad infinitum on this show, because we have to understand what the occult is in a much more mature way. And I think that we need to expose it further and further and further, and take this into the realm where it becomes truly widespread and distributed information. That is the only way I think we're going to lead to anything in our world that resembles true freedom in any way. When the occult is no longer hidden, when it is no longer the occult anymore, when it becomes common sense. That is my contention, and that is why I do this show. So, with that in mind, let's look at one of the oldest and most sacred tradition regarding self-knowledge and regarding the forces at work both within the individual unit of consciousness, the soul, so to speak, what some occult philosophers have called the monad, or the individual unit of self-awareness, of consciousness, and how that relates to the forces that are at work in nature, in the macrocosmic realm, in the universe. And that's what the tarot really teaches us, if we are receptive to its message. If we understand it as something simply more than a deck of cards, if we understand it as a book that is really telling us the story of ourselves. And we need to turn inward to study that story, and that's what the symbolism of the tarot cards simply helps us to do. It is a tool, okay? And it has been referred to, as I said, as the book of life, okay, as the book of truth as well. And we can start to look at the imagery of the cards and how rich and detailed they are if you've downloaded the PDF document with the deck. What I want to just do, and again, I could never possibly, just as a caveat to all of this, I could never possibly give anyone all of the knowledge of the tarot, and no matter how many shows I did it. I can only hope to whet someone's appetite to study this further on their own. because you can make a lifetime study of the tarot. Because you can make a lifetime study of the self. Okay, so this is just an introductory primer, and that's all it is intended to be. In no way is this intended to be extensive or thorough or comprehensive. It's an introduction to the tarot. Okay, for the student that wants to look further into this and will take it seriously and go deeper and understand that this is a tradition that teaches about the self, they are more than welcome to do so. And I will, as I did with Kabbalah last week, I will post some introductory material on tarot for people that want to look further into it, and that will be posted along with this podcast on the podcast section of my website. So, what is the tarot? The tarot is a deck of cards that tell a story, a tapestry, okay, help us to explore consciousness, as I've said. And these cards are 78 in number in a true tarot deck. 78, okay? There are 22 trump cards, or what is called the Major Arcana. The Arcana is the word for knowledge, okay? It is a Latin word. It means knowledge. This means the major knowledge, okay? Higher knowledge. And what the Major Arcana represents, or these trump cards, what it represents is the connection between the soul and the universe. So this is the correspondence principle that we've talked about in past weeks. Okay? The Hermetic principle of that which is above is like to that which is below, meaning that the universe is self-similar across all scales. Okay? That which happens in the microcosmic world, or the small, okay, is reflected into the macrocosmic world, or the very large. So that which is taking place at an individual level is reflected outward into society, and that's what our society becomes like, depending on how many people embody that particular modality of consciousness. It's very easy to understand, actually. You know, if you keep putting a certain type of energy into any given system, you will result with more of that kind of energy in that system. Okay, you keep heating a pot of water, you will get hotter water. Okay, you keep adding colder water to an existing pool of water, the overall temperature of the entire pool of water will become colder. It's quite simple if we just apply our minds to try to understand this. And that is what the Major Arcana suit, or the part of the deck called the Major Arcana, is all about. It is about this relationship between microcosm and macrocosm. And that's what I'm going to try to really get the listener to understand with the symbolism that I've posted to the site today. Okay, so there are 4 other suits or subdecks within the tarot deck of 78 cards. So on the Major Arcana, there are 22 cards. Okay, 22. Okay, and they are numbered 0 through 21. So if you look at the PDF document that I've posted, you will see that I start with a deck face card. This is basically just showing you what the deck that I chose for the symbolism, to explain the symbolism, is. And it's called the Universal Weight Deck, and it shows you who made this deck, who contributed to it. So this deck is derived from the teachings of A.E. Waite, Arthur Edmund Waite. And that's slide 1, or page 1 in this PDF document. Page 2 is where the Major Arcana starts, and it starts with card number 0, and then it goes forward all the way up to card 21, and these cards are numbered in Roman numerals, so hopefully people are somewhat familiar with Roman numerals. I could refer to the page numbers as well if Roman numerals confuses people, but that is how they are. Arranged in the PDF document. Now, the other 4 subdecks of the tarot are wands, cups, swords, and pentacles. Wands, cups, swords, and pentacles. Okay? And you will see them below the 21st card, I should say the 22nd, counting the 0 card, of the Major Arcana. Wands will start below that, and then you will see cups, and then you will see swords, and then you will see pentacles if you're paging through or scrolling through this PDF document. What these 4 subdecks represent is basically, this is called the Minor Arcana. By the way, all 4 of these decks taken together is called the Minor Arcana. And these 4 subdecks represent different qualities of the self. They represent, I'll start with the lowest in energy. See, these decks are actually arranged in energy levels. The Major Arcana I put at the very beginning of the document that I assembled, because this is the highest deck as far as knowledge and energy goes, because this is the deck of the soul and the universal forces that are at work in nature. Okay? So nothing is really higher in consciousness and energy than that, and that's why it's considered the quintessence or the 5th element of the deck. Okay? The element that describes the soul and the forces of nature. Okay? So that's the highest in power. Going down from that, we have wands, okay? And wands represents the element of fire. Fire. And you'll see fire symbolism in the wands as they're drawn, okay? Fire is an alchemical symbol or representation, and what it basically represents in our lives and in relation to ourselves is our actions. Okay, our actions. This is why it is the highest in power, because our actions are what actually work in the physical world higher than anything else. Any other force, any other elemental force that changes the material plane. Okay, so these 4 decks represent what goes on in the material plane. Okay, of the Minor Arcana. Fire being the highest in energy, which is wands. Okay? In the regular playing card deck, just as an analog to the tarot, because that is where it is derived, although in a bastardized form, this would be the suit of clubs. So wands corresponds to the suit of clubs in the regular playing card deck. Now, what you will notice immediately is in the regular playing card deck, the entire Major Arcana has been removed. And that's critical. That is very telling, in my estimation, because it is showing you that the quintessence is not even considered important. The 5th element, spirit, soul, and natural law, which is what the Major Arcana represents. And it's been removed from the modern playing card deck. Now it's just been made something we play with, okay, instead of something that is taken seriously, interpreted, read as an allegory about the nature of self and natural law. And that whole part of the deck has been thrown away, except, of course, for the Joker card, okay, which is in correspondence to the Fool card, the first card of the Major Arcana. It's the only card that is kept from the trump cards of the tarot. So the correspondence between the playing deck, we only have 4 suits, okay? And that's the suits, correspondences to the suits of the Minor Arcana. So going down to the next level, lower in energy, still important on the material plane, but not as high of a level as actions or wands, we have cups. Cups is below wands in the Minor Arcana. So the wands, the cups suit represents our emotional qualities. Okay, so while wands represents the plane of will or action, okay, Cups represents the emotional plane, okay, or what is taking place within us, the spirit in which we do things, the spirit in which we take our actions. So the emotional qualities, okay, of the self are embodied in the suit of cups. Okay, now moving downward from there, we see the suit of swords. Okay, so swords represents our intellectual capacities and capabilities. Okay, so swords is our mind. Okay, and what we do with it. Swords is intellect. Okay, and while that's important, what we know, we have to care enough to do something with what we know, and then we have to actually develop the will to act. That's why swords comes even below wands and cups. Okay. So moving downward one more level, the final, and by the way, let's look at the associations to the playing deck. For wands, it was clubs. Okay. For cups, it's hearts, of course, because this is the emotional symbol, the heart. Okay. For swords, it is spades. Okay. And then finally, we come to pentacles. This suit is also called discs in some decks and coins in some other decks. Okay. So this is pentacles, coins, or discs, depending on which deck you may have access to. It's called pentacles in the weight deck. So this suit corresponds to our resources in the physical world. Okay? It's the physical plane. It's what we have as far as innate talents, innate propensities or capabilities, things we are seemingly born with or born able to do better than others. It is also our material resources in the physical world. Okay, so it could represent money, physical resources, food, a house, anything like that. Okay, what we have at our disposal to use in a physical sense. That is what the pentacle suit represents. Okay, so as the material plane, this is the lowest in consciousness / energy, and then we move up from there. However, this part of the deck of the minor arcana equates to the diamonds suit in the regular playing card deck. So at the bottom level, physical plane, okay, the material plane, again, this would correspond in Kabbalah to Asiyah. We talked about the 4 worlds of Kabbalah last week. So this part of the minor arcana, the pentacles, would equate with the diamonds in the playing card deck to the material plane, or Asiyah, the world called Asiyah in Kabbalah, the plane of the material realm, okay, the physical world. Above that, we have the suit of swords. Swords is correspondent to the spades suit in the regular playing card deck, and this would be the world, the world of formation in Kabbalah, and that is Yetzirah. Okay, so this is the intellectual realm. Okay, this is intellect. All right. Upward from there, we go to cups. This is the emotional plane. Okay, this is hearts in the regular playing card deck. And then in the tradition of Kabbalah, this would be the 3rd world, which is Bria. Okay? And above that, the top level would be wands of the minor arcana. That's the highest energy of that part of the tarot deck. Wands represents fire. It's our actions. Okay, and in the Kabbalistic tradition, this would correspond to Atzilut, okay, which is the archetypal world. So that's the minor arcana. I'm not really going to say too much more than that. Okay, we could also equate them to earth, air, water, and fire. Okay, earth, pentacles, resources; air, intellect, swords. Okay, now we go upward. We get to cups. That's water, emotional qualities, and then up to wands. That's fire, and that's our actions. So here we have the same principle again: thought, emotion, and action, and what we do with what we have and what we know. It's a repeating theme over and over, in case, in listening many weeks, we haven't still seen this pattern or connection. And hopefully people see it and understand it deeply by this point if you've been following these podcasts. So that's the minor arcana, and you can get into it in depth. There's a whole lot more into it. It connects in with the tradition of astrology, and it connects in with different star constellations. It's a very fascinating study, the minor arcana, but that is not what I'm going to focus on here today. Rather, I'm going to focus on the deck that is left out of modern playing cards, the analogy to the tarot in the modern world, the playing card deck. We're going to look at the most important part of the deck and how this relates to the Kabbalistic tradition, which is the major arcana. So let's break down the cards of the major arcana. And again, I'm going to do this in conjunction, in connection with, in correlation to the Kabbalistic tree of life. And as we said toward the end of the show last week, there are really two different Kabbalistic trees when we study this in conjunction with the tarot. And they are what is called the microcosmic tree of life. Okay, and this is the tree that describes the qualities of the self, the individual, the individuation of universal consciousness, the monad, as it is called in different occult schools of thought. Okay? The single unit, okay? The microcosm, the soul. All right? Then we can look at this tree, quote unquote, this arrangement of cards, in conjunction with the macrocosmic tree of life, which is the universal forces of nature. Okay? And that's what we're going to attempt and endeavor to do here, is see these cards in their relationship with another tradition. So we're building correspondences here. And this is what all occultism really does. See, the left brain must step aside in the study of any of these schools of thought. This is why the scientifically minded have so much of a problem with the occult. This is why people will insist that this is another religion, and it has nothing to do with religion. Zero to do with religion. Okay? The other thing people will say is, I don't want to study this or look into this or understand this because I don't believe in that. This has nothing to do with beliefs either. This has to do with knowing oneself. And that's all the occult has ever been about. That's all the mystery traditions have ever been about. But if someone has fallen in consciousness and yet has a whole lot of knowledge about self, if they've fallen into the dynamic of fear, the energy of fear, okay? If they've fallen into fear-based consciousness, meaning that they are afraid of lack, of not having, they are obsessed with the physical world, okay? They have become reptilian in their brain because they are living from the lowest brain structure, the R complex of the brain. The reptile brain, okay? And they're constantly in fear of what may happen to them in the physical world, and therefore they want to take, they want to hoard, they want to have at the expense of other people not having. They want to create dichotomy. They want to create schism. They want to have haves and have-nots, which is where we're at in the world that we live in, all right? When this kind of a consciousness gets hold of information like this, they will hoard it, and they will use it as a weapon against people who may not be as aware as they are about how the nature of the psyche works, about how the mind itself works. And then they will twist it, pervert it, and use it as a weapon. And that's what the dark elements of occultism are. That's what they are, and that's what they have done. And we need, again, I'll say this repeatedly, we need to be more mature in our understanding of what the occult is. It's simply hidden knowledge, and we need to understand it is how it is used. Too many people paint with a broad brush about this and say it's all negative, it's all bad. Nonsense. The reason that dominators want people to think that have a vested interest, like religions, have a vested interest in having people think that, is so you never understand the hidden knowledge that they do about how you work. And therefore you can be manipulated like a puppet by the people that do have this knowledge. And that's it, period. Accept that or don't accept it, but that's the truth. So the idea that I don't believe in this stuff, right? I've responded to this before as well. You don't need to believe in it. Other people understand this information and are using it whether you believe in it or not. If you understand how a law works and how you may manipulate that law to your advantage, and other people do not understand how those laws work, they're powerless to defend themselves against you, who are at a much higher level of knowledge than they are, dwelling in ignorance. And, pound your fists against the desk or against the wall all you want about that. That's never going to be any different, and you don't need to believe in it for this to be in effect and operation. And to take that kind of an attitude is the attitude of a child that doesn't want to believe that something exists and has an effect upon their life. It's the child who refuses to accept that 1 + 1 = 2 and wants it to equal 3 because they want one more of what they don't have. Okay? And is pounding their fist on the desk like a little child saying, why can't 1 + 1 = 3? There is no answer to that. It simply doesn't. That's how it is. So, for people that don't want to accept that the occult has any influence in their life, just, click the stop button or the pause button or the mute button right now and go and turn the television on and enjoy being dominated and then eventually exterminated by the dark occultists of this world, because that's the only thing that's on its way. So for those who do want to go further and understand how these principles work and how they've been manipulated, let's begin the delving into the Major Arcana, the higher knowledge of the tarot. Now, just before we do this, let's look at the word tarot itself, okay? Tarot essentially is, it's derived from the word for the goddess, okay? Tarot is a sacred feminine tradition, okay? It is a tradition that relates to the generative principle of nature, which ultimately is true care. So this tradition ultimately goes back to goddess worship, the goddess traditions that predate all the mystery traditions, okay? Because it's about the nature of creation. And creation has been seen as a feminine force because the universe came out of the void, nothingness, okay? Babies come out of the womb. We all come out of the womb, the waters of our mother. The cosmic mother of the galaxy gives birth to the stars and the solar systems in which life inhabits, and we have a chance to come into incarnation in the physical world and learn. So this goes back to ancient goddess traditions. And the oldest name one of the oldest names in recorded history in the goddess tradition comes from the Far East, the goddess Tara. Okay, very similar in pronunciation. Okay, same basic phonetic roots, Tara. And that's spelled T-A-R-A, for those that want to look into this goddess. She was a goddess of compassion, mercy, nurturing. Okay, it is all about the generative principle, which we've talked about. What is the prime generator of our experience? It is that which we care about. It is that which we focus our attention on, and that which we care enough about to take action in the physical plane to accomplish. Okay, so that's what gives birth to the will, is the heart, care. All right, so that is where the name Tarot really comes from. This goddess, Tara, has many different incarnations. Okay? In the Egyptian tradition, she is Isis, or Hathor, or Maat, okay? Or Ta'ut, she was called in older Egyptian tradition. Ta'ut, T-A-U-R-T, Ta'ut. Now, in other traditions in the Middle East, her name phonetically morphed and became, instead of Ta'ut with a U-R-T, we have a reversal, and it became Ta'ut, or with a soft T sound at the end. Ta'ut, Ta'ruth, Ta'ruth. Okay, Ruth is another name associated with this goddess. Ta'ruth. And you can hear the similarity there to our English word, truth. Taruth. Truth. Truth. Okay, it's just a blending. It's the same basic phonetic variant blended. So this is why this is called the Book of Truth. It's the Book of Taruth, the Book of Tara, the Book of the Goddess. It's ultimately the Book of Care. All right? And that is why it is referred to as the Book of Life. Because ultimately, if we do not understand the generative principle of care, we don't understand life. Period. That's it. So, with that in mind about the root, the phonetic root of where the word tarot comes from, and we will see this goddess in the deck, visually depicted in the symbology. Let's look at the Major Arcana. And I'm going to do one more aside before we jump into that and talk about what most people think the tarot is and what it is not. What it is and what it is not. Or I should say, give people a wider understanding of what it is, because they seem to think that this is all about fortune telling. Okay, so I would be remiss if I didn't even just at least cover the concept of fortune telling, or divination, as it is called, the attempt to predict the future through different reading of different symbols. Okay, divination is one of the uses of the tarot deck. However, and you can use it that way, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't particularly have any problem with the tarot being used that way. However, I think that this is a lesser usage. It can definitely work like that and help us to get in touch with our intuitive capacities to help us understand the direction that things, the different courses of events may be headed in our lives or in the world. Absolutely, the symbolism can do that. But I think that is an even lesser goal of the tarot. It is one of the lesser intents for which the tarot was originally intended to be used. Another thing we could just briefly touch on is the origin of the tarot, which I'll get to in a minute. But the original uses, the major use of the tarot is not for divination or fortune telling. It is for getting in touch with the self, okay? Understanding the self better, through the interpretation of the allegorical symbols that are contained on the cards. And the reason that this was done is because in the past, you had to tell it in encoded, because, ruthless barbarian rulers of ancient times would have killed people, beheaded them, burned them at the stake, etc., all kinds of torture, put them on the rack for even daring to express this knowledge verbally or in a written form. So, in order to circumvent their barbaric mindset, they would encode the story that they were actually telling, an oral tradition story, okay, into symbols, which, as we say, the phrase symbols, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, a symbol is worth 1,000 pictures, because there's so much contained within these rich tapestry of symbols that you could spend, a day discussing just the symbolism of one card, let alone the entire deck. It is a book. It is not just a deck of cards. It is literally an entire book, that you can read into repeatedly and in extreme depth if you are inclined to do so. And so that's the original intent of the tarot. That's why it was encoded into imagery. And the origin. People say, okay, this is derived only from recent times, the 14 or 15 or 1600s in Europe. And there's all kinds of claims to where the tarot, originated and what the earliest deck is. And the tarot, I'll just say this, and you can look into this and research the origin. The tarot is much older than people give it credit for being. Okay? It is derived from ancient mystery school traditions that date back to the ancient Middle East and definitely go back into Egypt. Okay? And this was absolutely used in conjunction with the Kabbalistic tradition, and I would say it probably predates what we consider the Egyptian civilizations. Okay? I would say this goes right back into ancient antiquity when, Egypt was referred to as the land of Chem, and probably even before that, to lost civilizations of which very little recollection, let alone records, even remain. So it is ancient. I would say it is thousands of years old, not hundreds. Okay? And you will see a lot of Egyptian symbolism in the tarot cards, kind of giving a nod or a tip of the hat to the Egyptian civilization as being one of the root lands, the motherlands of where this rich symbolic tradition was derived. So, with that having been said about the usage of the tarot and the origins of it, let's look into the Major Arcana now. Okay, so here we go. And we'll start with the Fool card, card number 0. So this is page number 2 of the PDF document. Hopefully people who are listening have had a chance to download it. I hope the server held up well and provided a decent download speed. The document is only about 6 megabytes. That's not too bad. I tried to compress it well. The images I think still look good. If you view them at less than 100%, they crispen up a little bit and look a little bit sharper. Okay, so this is page number 2, and this is card number 0 of the Major Arcana. This is called the Fool. Okay, it is a young boy or a young man going off on a quest. He has a bag packed on a stick. Okay. He has a flower in his hand. He has a dog, a white dog, at his side, and he is stepping off of a cliff. Okay? What this card represents is the journey of the soul. The journey of the soul through the physical plane, through all of the planes, all of the worlds, as we talked about in the Kabbalistic tradition. Okay? But it's journey from the no thing, which is where it begins and ends. That's why it's card 0, the cosmic egg. Okay, this is an archetype symbol. Okay, representing infinity, okay, representing the beginning is the end and the end is the beginning. Okay, it represents no beginning and no end. Okay, they're both joined as one. Infinity, okay, the unified field, the source of all consciousness. All right? It is a journey, not a destination. So the fool is going on this journey because he doesn't know. That's why he is taking the journey. He needs experience. That's why he's referred to as the fool. This isn't necessarily a negative connotation. This is saying the whole journey is done for experience and knowledge of self. Okay? The fool carries very little with him. This represents that we can take very little with us into other lives. Okay? But there is some. It's a small amount. This is what I talked about when we talked about nature versus nurture and how there is very little human nature. Okay, we come in with very little specific innate capabilities, but certain of us do, okay, and they are held over from other incarnations. The flower represents purity, okay, beginning in a pure state. And this is what I've talked about. We don't come in as homicidal murderers, okay? We come in a basically pure state, and we are conditioned into the ways that we think through the environmental conditions that are already in place in this world. The dog represents the forces of nature that guide the journey of the soul, but more specifically, it represents the human intuition and the human imagination, the guiding forces of the soul's journey through life. Okay, and you can already see how powerful the symbolism is in these cards. If you're paying any attention, taking any of this to heart, or taking any of it seriously. And scientific types and left brain types will just say, oh, it's all nonsense. Well, go right ahead, continue to believe that, and let yourself not understand the holistic nature of yourself, live as half a person in just the left brain, never make any connection to the higher consciousness of the right mind, okay? And let yourself be used as a tool, because that's what most people like that are, tools. For other people with horrible intentions for them and everyone else that just know more about how the psyche and these forces work and how to manipulate people. And that's why morons like that will go and build atomic weaponry or hydrogen weaponry for psychopaths. Okay? Yeah, that got you a whole lot. You accomplished a lot with just the pure left brain. And you can say, hey, it's harsh the way you're wording it. Yeah, it's harsh. Right. I'm not here to make friends with people. Okay? I'm here to explain to people we're heading off a cliff into a ravine and not the one that the fool is headed off, because he's going into the abyss of the universal pool of consciousness is what he's stepping off into, that journey. He's not going over into a fiery abyss of pure destruction, which is what the human race is headed off into, because they won't make that journey that the fool is making. They won't initiate themselves to understand themselves. They want to remain in ignorance and think that they can prosper. And once again, nothing else to say about that except it doesn't work that way. Why? Because it doesn't. Because there are laws in this realm, and you're bound by them. The end. So people will still insist that that's not the case, and all I can do is acknowledge that there are idiots out there like that, and the word idiot means one who does not know the self. That's what the actual etymology of that word comes down to. And that's exactly what people like that are, idiots. And again, I'm not here to make friends. I'm tasked with bringing this knowledge out into the light of day so that people who do want to study it can study it. And I'm going to call that which is the way I see it. And, the left-brained, the left-brained imbalanced among us are never going to get this. They're not going to get this until they suffer enough. And the only thing I can do is wish that suffering comes to them as quickly as possible and as brutally and bluntly as possible so that they can get over it and get on with understanding. If not, they'll probably choose to not learn and die in this life and, not having initiated themselves into this journey and have to do it all over again many, many times as it takes, because they're never getting out of here without confronting this. So the fool's journey is into self. That's what the fool's journey ultimately is toward, a higher understanding of self and higher levels of consciousness. The ultimate goal of the fool is to master the self, the lower level self. Self-mastery is what the tarot is teaching us. Okay? So, I would like people to refer to image number 1 on the website, if they have access to it, to go up there to the radio listen page and look at image number 1 for tonight's show, which is the microcosmic tree of life. Okay. We started talking about this last week, and I'm going to proceed in order. I'm going to go in actually reverse order, okay, of the cards. I'm going to go from the bottom of this tree to the top of the tree in reverse order of the Sephiroth of the tree of life. The Fool, you will see the Fool card depicted in the space right below the top of the tree, which is where the Magician card, which is card number 1 in the trump cards, okay, in the Major Arcana cards, is positioned. Now, the Fool card is not positioned as one of the Sephiroth of the Tree of Life, okay? It is not one of the Sephiroth. It is positioned in what is called the realm of Da'at, okay? D-A-A-T or D-A-A-T-H, okay, depending on how, different schools of Kabbalah spell it, transliterate it, I should say, from the Hebrew. That is where I am positioning the Fool card, and I am coloring it in white. I am putting this outline of, this hazy outline of energy, if you're looking at this microcosmic tree of life card, card number 1, image number 1 on the website for the images for tonight on the radio listen page, okay? This white hazy energy represents that this is the realm of the no thing. This is the realm of the hidden, okay? Because the soul forces are initially hidden and have to be discovered by us, okay? And they don't they don't have their origin in the physical world. Okay, Da'at is the realm of hidden knowledge, hidden awareness. It is what is really considered the true root of the tree of life, from which the tree of life springs. Okay? So this is the no thing. It's non-material, it's non-physical. The tree of life comes out of it as an extension of the spiritual realm. Okay? It's the stargate leading to the realm of pure spirit or pure consciousness, pure awareness. Okay? That is where we're putting the Fool card to depict that this card is not one of the 10 cards of the microcosmic tree of life itself. Rather, the soul, okay, the actual spirit is where this tree comes from. All right? That's why it's positioned there. That's very important to understand. And again, these are all symbols trying to teach an important thing about the nature of the reality in which we live. All right? We have to keep that in mind. This isn't a religion. This is just a tapestry of symbols to teach a lesson, to teach information about what we are doing here, what this realm is, And if we're going to change it and make it better, what is required of us? And we need to receive that knowledge from the higher self, okay, which is what that realm of Da represents. That's what the whole Kabbalistic tradition is, the process of receiving. That's what the word Kabbalah means, okay? So, let's start at card number 10, Roman numeral 10, at the bottom of the microcosmic tree. This is what I gave the deck of the tarot cards to the listening audience to refer to, okay? So, because of the discrepancy of the first two cards, the first card in the PDF document being the face card, and then the second being the 0 card, which we just talked about, card 10 in the Major Arcana is on page 12. So we're always going to be 2 pages. The page numbers will always be 2 pages greater than the card. Okay? Just keep that in mind. All right? So if you go to page 12 on the PDF document, you will see card number 10, the Wheel of Fortune. So the Wheel of Fortune represents the material plane. This represents the physical world. It corresponds to, as we see in image number 1, on the microcosmic tree of life, Malkut, which we talked about last week, being the physical world. It is the world in which we operate. It's the world in which we have to use all of the other forces to make change happen. And it is the realm in which we experience suffering that is proportional to the level of ignorance we exist in. Okay? The level, I should say, of ignorance, apathy, and laziness/cowardice that we live in. To the extent that those qualities are present in us, we will experience greater suffering. They are inversely proportional. That's directly proportional. Okay, the suffering that we experience is inversely proportional to how much intelligence, care, and will and courage we have. Okay, so as we have more of those, we have less suffering. As we have less of those, we have more suffering. Okay, what is depicted on this card is the wheel of suffering, the wheel of, as it is called in the Buddhist tradition, samsara. Okay? And it is also a reference to us as to the direction that we need to go if we are to get out of that perpetual cycle of suffering. We have to seek Tara. Okay, that's why the word tarot is on the card. We have to seek the truth. We have to seek the goddess, so to speak. Okay? We have to seek the sacred feminine generative force that is hidden in nature and in our nature, in the heart, in order to get out of that realm, that cycle of suffering in the physical domain. And that's what this Sphinx represents. He is a way shower, so to speak. Okay? He has this sword of truth. And we have to intuitively recognize that there is a pathway to higher consciousness, know that we're not there, we're not in it, in the beginning of our in the beginning of our journey as an initiate, okay? And have a leap of faith that the fool is taking, because that's what that is. It's not a suicide. It's a leap of faith that there is such a thing as truth and that we can understand it. And that is what will help us to get out of identification with the purely physical and material. We see around the outside of the card the angels of the corners, as it is referred to. The bull represents Taurus, okay, because these are constellations on the zodiac. This is the Great Cross. And we see the 2 crosses depicted in the middle of the Wheel of Fortune. Now, what I'm realizing here is that this is all of the symbolism, which I think is very important, is probably going to take a little bit longer to describe. We will probably go into a second week on tarot. Hopefully I can wrap up the microcosmic tree tonight, and then next week we'll look at the macrocosmic tree. I think this is very important, and it really will begin to take the listener's mind into understanding symbolism and realizing how rich symbolism really is, that it is a language in and of itself, and that we have to become versed in this symbolism. We have to become symbol literate. Okay? It's an entire language that we need to learn, because the dominators, the dark occultists of this world, are always using this symbolism. All around us, they're using it. And they're using it to subvert human consciousness so that they can continue to get away with what they've been getting away with. And we need to learn this language if we're going to really, truly be able to break out of their mind manipulation. So this is why I'm doing this now. There's a reason. There's always a method to the madness on this show. Okay? I'm doing this in a very specific linear progression that is set up in kind of a left-brained way, because the mind has to be taken out of its conditioning in a very specific way. Because if you don't establish building blocks and you start talking about something here way down the road, and the foundational principles have not been established early on, somebody just listening is going to say, "What are you talking about?" You know? That's why it's important to listen to the podcasts of this show in order. So new listeners may, find themselves at a disadvantage. Maybe they can grasp some of it. If they've familiarized themselves with some of these terms and concepts in their own readings or in their own life through different forms of media. However, a brand new beginner, probably would want to go and listen to the early podcasts and, take the journey from the beginning up to this point. But I'm doing this so that we can get a richer understanding and appreciation of how symbolism works and how it is used, so that when we go into the symbolism section, that will be easier for the listener to grasp. Also, I will be really breaking down a lot of occult symbolism in the symbolism section, and that's why I'm doing this now, to basically familiarize the listeners with a lot of occult symbolism, so that will be easier to grasp when we get to that section. Okay? So back to the Wheel of Fortune card. Okay? We have the angels of the corners. These are also the gospel writers: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. These are the four archangels: Michael, Raphael, Ariel, and Uriel. Okay? These are the four elements: earth, air, water, and fire. Okay? On and on, the four seasons: spring, summer, fall, and winter. Okay? So Taurus is earth. Okay? It is the spring season, the midpoint of spring, the middle house of spring in the zodiac. All right? The lion represents Leo. This is fire. Okay? So this is the midpoint of summer. Okay? The eagle represents Scorpio. Aquila, the eagle constellation, is near the constellation of Scorpio. So this is fall, and this is water. Okay? And the angel represents Aquarius, the water bringer, and this is the midpoint of winter. Okay, so this is air. So again, this is how they relate to the four minor arcana decks. Taurus would be pentacles. Leo would be wands. The eagle would be cups, and the angel would be swords. We were talking about the angels of the corners. We kind of wrapped up that section, which is the Wheel of Fortune card. Just the important thing to keep in mind with this card, it represents the physical plane. It represents the soul's journey into the state of incarnation, or being born into the physical world. And it alludes to the pathway out of it being through the Keeper of Truth, which is represented there by the Sphinx, one of the keepers of the halls of knowledge, the halls of records, so to speak. as symbolized in ancient Egypt. Now, on the wheel itself, you will see the name tarot written as a circle, T-A-R-O, and then back to the original T, okay? Now, again, there's many things in here, okay? Hidden things, hidden little gems. You'll see the 4 Hebrew characters, Yod, He, Vav, He, which is the Tetragrammaton. We talked about that last week in the Kabbalistic tradition. These are references to the 4 worlds of Kabbalah. These are references to the 4 elements of nature. These are representative of the name of God in Hebrew, which is transliterated as YHVH, Yahweh or Jehovah. We see the 2 crosses, okay? The 2 crosses representing the solar cross, or what is known as the cross of the solar system, or the cross of St. George, the straight up and down cross like a plus sign. And then we see the greater cross representing the cross of the galaxy, okay, which is a reference to these, quote, angels or constellations of the 4 corners of the zodiac. And that is called, that X-shaped cross is called the cross of St. Andrew. Okay, so I will break down the word tarot on this wheel in just a moment, but I see we have a caller on the line, so here we go. Whisper in Wind. Caller, you are on. What on earth is happening? What do you have for us today?
Yeah, you said that the imagery in the deck of cards was used to find oneself, I think basically you said. Now, would that include necromancing, your ancestors and your descendants, to find yourself there?
Well, I would say that this is one of the usages that some people in some traditions that study tarot may use it for, to get in touch with what we consider the spiritual world, or the realm of the hereafter. This is not one of its original intended usages, as I believe divination itself is not. This is something that, again, I think that the intuitive capacities these cards in studying the symbolism can put you into touch with can help to bring out in us, okay? But I don't think that it's one of the higher usages of these cards. Occultists who are serious students of the self, serious students of the human psyche, use these cards for the story that they tell in their rich symbolism, for the archetypal imagery and symbology that is contained in the cards, rather than for pure divination. But I would say that they can be used for those purposes. That would be my answer to your question. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I would just say that how could one find oneself if they did not find their ancestors, because they are nothing without them and they are nothing without them. You know what I mean?
Sure, and these cards come from our ancestors, and they really do tell a rich tradition of where we came from. You know, if we really delve down deep into them, that they're telling us that this is the study of the ancient past as well. I think one of the main ways that we are controlled is by being cut off from our origins. If you cut off people from their origins, you are in an absolute position to wield control over them. So that's a great point.
As a weapon to forget your ancestors. The kings of the earth know who their ancestors are.
That's right.
But they want you to forget yours.
Yeah,
now,
if you get a vision, right.
If you get a vision with Mother Mary, they're going to call that a miracle. But if you talk with your ancestors, they're going to call you a witch.
Right, right.
Wise one, isn't it?
I agree. And you bring up a good point. So I want to thank you for calling in. Great point. So, yeah, there are a multitude of uses for the tarot. I am basically attempting to explain what I consider to be the richest use of them, but it is not the only one. So that caller raises a good point, and he raises a great point about the really important idea of connection to our ancestry and of human origins, which if that can be controlled and cut off from us, it's a piece of cake to basically wield influence and control over other people if they don't know where they've come from. Not knowing where you've come from means ultimately you don't know where you're going. And sadly, that's the case for too many of us. So thank you, caller. Great point. Anyone else? If anyone else calls in, Bob, just throw them right on and break in on top of me, and I will monitor the talk shoe line. So continuing. On this Wheel of Fortune card, there is the word tarot, T-A-R-O, okay? Now, if we look at the other arrangements of the letters on this wheel, okay, we can see that there is something in it. There is a hidden, a full sentence, not only just words in other languages in it, but there is a full sentence, okay? So the first word that is hidden in this arrangement of letters is rota, R-O-T-A, which is Latin for wheel, okay? And we see a depiction of the wheel on this card, as we've already referred to. So rota means wheel, okay? So the word tarot is in there itself. So the wheel of tarot, okay? What other words or arrangements of words are in here, okay? We see the word T-O-R-A, which is a Hebrew reference, a transliteration of Torah. Torah means law, okay? It's a reference to the first 5 books of the Bible, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Okay, so this is the Torah and what is considered the law in the Judaic tradition. Okay? Another word for Torah, another concept that it is connected to, is the truth itself. Okay? And again, the goddess was considered the goddess of truth, justice, and natural law. And her name is made reference to with T-A-R-O, tarot, which is where the word tarot is derived from, Tara. Okay? But also her name is hidden in A-T-O-R, Ator. Okay? So if we have a hard breath mark at the beginning, we get Hathor. 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 Hathor is a name of the goddess in the Egyptian tradition. Hathor is the goddess of love and care. Okay? So we have another name for the goddess hidden in this arrangement of letters. Okay? We see the word, if we go in the counterclockwise direction, a couple of words appear. One of them is ator, A-T-O-R, and this is a Latin verb that means cultivate. Okay? Cultivate or generate, essentially. Okay? And we saw this is about the generative principle, the cultivation of care. Okay? Another word in Latin that we derive from this arrangement of letters, and all of these are in order, these letters. We're not going even across to other letters. We're going in order along the outside of the wheel. Okay? O-R-A-T means it speaks. He, she, or it speaks. Where we get the word orator from, a speaker. Okay? So if we put all of these together, right, we can come up with a sentence that is what the tarot is actually all about. Okay? Wheel, R-O-T-A. Tarot, T-A-R-O. The wheel of the tarot. Okay? A-T-O-R. I'm sorry. A-R-O-T. Arot is cultivates. Arot. Okay? The wheel of the tarot cultivates. Okay? Or it acts as a generator. Okay? Then we could say Orat, O-R-A-T. It speaks. Right? T-O-R-A. Torah, the law. Right? A-T-O-R. Hathor, of Hathor. So the wheel of the tarot cultivates. It speaks the law of Hathor, the goddess. This is an entire sentence arranged within those 4 letters, telling you what the tarot is. Okay? It's a connection that is a circular, a cyclical connection, representing the self, that acts as a connection to the generative principle, okay? A wheel that is a cultivating wheel. And what it ultimately helps us to do is understand the law of nature, of the goddess. It speaks the law of Hathor. That in and of itself, to be able to do that with 4 letters, is amazing. Okay, and I'll put a breakdown of that in a slide on the site with the podcast. I hope people are looking at some of the images that I post with the podcast, as you can go back and download them and listen to these, because they help to understand some of these concepts even better. Okay, we're back on What on Earth is Happening. Let's move to the next tarot card upward on the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, the microcosmic Tree of Life. If you're referring to image number 1 on the site, we are going to now move up to page number 11 on the PDF document, and this is card number 9, okay? Card number 9, and it's called the Hermit. The Hermit is the initiate who begins to leave the purely physical, identified state of consciousness. He knows that he has been dwelling in darkness and illusion, and therefore he sets out as well on a journey to truth with a lamp of knowledge, and inside you'll see the 6-pointed blazing star representing the seal of Solomon, which we've extensively talked about on this show in the past, as the balance between the left and right brain hemispheres, okay? And that is what the hermit seeks. He knows that he is in a state of spiritual darkness and wants light. That's why he wears a darker robe, okay? His robes are not pure. They're not white. They're gray, okay? Dark or gray, okay? This is a connection to look at Gandalf, the gray wizard in Lord of the Rings, who then becomes the white wizard through his process of self-purification after he does battle with his internal demon, which is the Balrog in Lord of the Rings, this demon of smoke and fire, okay? After doing battle with him and conquering him, which represents the darker aspects of the self, he then emerges as the white wizard in the later parts of the trilogy. So, the hermit is the initiate, okay? He is the one who realizes he has a lot to learn. And he is in darkness but wants to receive, okay? So this is associated with the desire center. This is the sacrum chakra. Like the Wheel of Fortune card represents Malkuth, or the base chakra. And you can refer to image number 3 for a correlation between the Tree of Life, the Sephirot, or the emanations along the Tree of Life, on the Tree of Life symbol, and the chakras of the body. Okay? So this would be the desire chakra, or what is referred to as the sacrum chakra in the Vedic tradition. Okay? It's called the Swadhisthana chakra. Okay? So that is the sphere of Yesod on the Tree of Life. Okay? That is foundation. He is establishing a foundation through his desire to learn. He is beginning to root himself in higher levels of awareness. He is now out of Asiyah, and this is the first Sephirot in the world called Yetzirah, the realm of formation. Okay? Moving upward to the cards that are colored yellow. Okay? This is a dualistic chakra, or a dualistic emanation along the Tree of Life. Okay? Because we have to look at these all in conjunction in reference to the middle pillar. Okay? So this is a twofold aspect of the will center. Okay? The root chakra connects us with the physical plane. The sacrum chakra, representing Yesod or the hermit, okay, is the desire center of wanting to improve ourselves, wanting to gain more spiritual knowledge. And then we have to apply will, okay? Of course, will has to be tempered by care. This is why the heart chakra is even above that. But the two yellow cards represent the dual nature of the will, okay? And this is an internal manifestation and an external one, okay? So the internal manifestation is the card to the left there on the pillar of severity, and it is called strength. This is associated with the sephirah known as Hod, okay, which we talked about last week. You can always go back to the podcast and refer to these and the images and books. Tons of information to cross-correlate all of these, okay? But what that card represents is courage, okay? So this is an internal quality, the strength to overcome fear that is within, all right? And that is card number 8. Card number 8, you'll see a woman with a lion, and she has an infinity symbol over her head, meaning that she is kind of coronated as an illuminate, one who does know the self, okay? She is holding the jaws of a lion closed with her bare hands. Now, that's a symbol for courage right there, okay? But it's a symbol that she is conquering her fears. Okay? She is conquering her internal fears. All right? So, courage, the strength card, the sphere of Hod on the tree, on the left-hand pillar of severity, okay? The next card is Sephirah number 7 on the Tree of Life, and this would be associated with card number 7, okay? It's called the Chariot. And here we see as the secondary aspect of the plane of will, okay, of the aspect of will. This is the solar plexus chakra in the Vedic chakra system, okay? It's called the Manipura chakra, all right? This card, the Chariot, represents willpower to act in the world. So we have internal courage and external willpower, okay, to actually get something done, all right, using the will that exists within us to get something done in the external world, in the physical world. That's why he is the chariot driver, the charioteer, okay? He uses the two forces, okay, the feminine force of care and the masculine force of actually acting in the world, okay, represented by these two sphinxes, okay? The sacred feminine is the dark one and the sacred masculine is the white one, okay, to actually take action in the world, and that's why he's holding a wand, representing action in the suit of wands, okay? And he is also crowned as an illuminate, as you will see this theme repeated over and over again. It's showing you this is one of the paths to illumination, to what is really meant as enlightenment, acting in the proper moral way. That's what this card represents. That's why it is on the pillar of action, or the pillar of mercy, the right-hand path of the Kabbalistic Tree of Life. Okay? So again, we could spend a whole show on each card. I want to move forward because we only have a few moments left, and we'll continue this next week, but I'm going to move a little bit faster. Card number 6, as we move up to the green, or the middle of the Tree of Life, the very hub, which is the representative of the heart chakra or the Anahata chakra, okay? This is the lover's card, of course, because this is about love. This is about true care. Once again, we see the twin forces of male and female, represented by Adam and Eve, and they are brought together by higher consciousness or an archangel. I believe that would be the representative of, it would represent the archangel Michael, if I'm not mistaken, and it's just basically saying higher forces is what that angel represents, okay? And that's what love puts us into touch with. That's what true care puts us into touch with, all right? So the Lover's card associated with the heart chakra, okay? On the Tree of Life, that would be the sphere of Tiferet, which means beauty. And I neglected to mention the sphere called Netzah is what we would associate the Chariot with, okay? But Tiferet on the Tree of Life corresponds to the Lover's card. Going forward to Sephirah number 5, this is the Hierophant, okay? Some decks call this card simply the Pope, okay? The Hierophant represents the aspects that we exercise within ourselves for self-control, dominion, as I've called it, bringing the thoughts, emotions, and actions into harmony or unison in an act of our will. So controlling our own thoughts, emotions, and actions, the only thing we're really allowed to control. That's the Hierophant card, what he ultimately represents, and you will see that he is crowned, sovereign, okay? And you'll see this over and over again, all right? He holds also a form of a wand, because this is about a form of control, but it is the kind of control that we do have a right to exercise, because it is taking control over the kingdom of self. And that's why this is called severity, or Geburah, on the Tree of Life. And this card is blue. It is associated with the throat chakra, or the Vishuddha chakra. Okay? So, Hierophant, internal self-control, self-dominion. Okay? And it also represents maintaining control over your own words and what you are doing with your words, since it is associated with the throat chakra. Okay? So, it is about what do you use your voice, energy to speak into creation. What are you putting out there? Are you speaking the truth? Okay? That's what this card is all about. All right? Now, the next card, card number 4 in the Major Arcana, is the Emperor. And this would be associated also with the throat chakra, as this is another dualistic rung on the Tree of Life. Okay? This card would be associated with the sphere called Hesed, which is mercy, okay, on the pillar of mercy, the right-hand pillar on the Tree of Life. And the Emperor represents influencing others, being an influence in the world, okay, through what you know, what you care about, and what you do. How does your life inspire and influence other people? Are you an example, like a good king, okay, setting an example for others on how to live and what to spend your time doing, and what to spend your the resources that you have on, and what to do with your mind, etc., and how to use your voice? Okay, so this is the external influence that we exercise upon others around us in whatever way. All right? The Emperor. Again, he also has a form of a wand, and he has a globe representing the earth. And what this really represents is that our actions go beyond us and influence the world. All right? He is also crowned as Emperor, okay? Associated with Aries as well, the ram, a fire sign. Okay? It's on the active pillar. So that is the Emperor card, and that completes the throat chakra, the two aspects of the throat chakra: internal self-control and then influence of others. Okay? How we speak to ourselves to help ourselves move forward in consciousness, and how we speak to others to influence them. And, do we use that in the capacity of truth? Do we use that to really make a contribution and to leave the world better than we found it? Going up to card number 3, the Empress card, okay? clearly we see that this is associated with the goddess, as is the next card, upward. We have the heart and the symbol of Venus itself, the planetary symbol for Venus. Clearly this is the symbol for Venus. Again, crowned with stars, because it's one of the planets, again, connected with the stellar cult, the astrotheological cult of stars and planets, as we talked about in past weeks. This card is connected with the Sephirah called Binah. Binah means understanding, okay? So this is simply, and again, this is these two chakras, these two cards in purple here are associated with the third eye chakra, which is the Ajna chakra. So the Ajna chakra is the Empress and the High Priestess, which represents the goddess. This is, about the realm of knowledge, because we're up at the third eye level of the tree of life. And again, the Empress, in being a correspondent to the Sephirah Binah, is simply what we know. Okay? It's an internal quality. That's why it's on the pillar of severity. Going up to card number 4, here we see the goddess in the middle of the Temple of Solomon, the Freemasonic pillars of Jachin and Boaz, okay? Also representing the tribes of Benjamin and Judah, okay? With the moon, because she is the moon goddess, the cross on her chest representing the heart chakra, and also the giving birth to the sun savior on the cross of the zodiac. Torah written on the book she is holding, because she is the goddess of truth and law, okay, as she is connected with Ma'at. The tree of life is behind her, you'll notice, and it's depicted as pomegranates. And if you checked out the page on my podcast section for last week, I posted a book called A Garden of Pomegranates by the occultist Israel Regardi, which talks about the tree of life and Kabbalah in general. Rich symbolism all over the card. This is the goddess of truth. This is Tara herself, okay, depicted in the deck. And she represents the sphere on the tree called Hokmah. Hokmah is wisdom, because, of course, she is the Logos Sophia, the word of wisdom itself, okay? Wisdom is what we do with what we know. So this is the active quality. Finally, the magician represents self-mastery, and he masters all the forces of nature and the lower elements of the material world, and he wields the wand of power, which connects us to the spirit. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all we have time for this week on What on Earth is Happening. I'll be getting to more symbolism of the tarot coming up next week. We'll look at the macrocosmic tree. I'll wrap up the magician card a little bit. But we'll see you next Tuesday night right here on What on Earth is Happening on the Intel Hub News Network. I'm your host, Mark Passio. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Great callers. We'll see you here next week. Good night.